Yes, so let's talk Fallout. There's so many questions that I think everyone has coming out of yesterday's presentation. Obviously, the big news that it's coming out this year.
Yep.
Why did you guys decide to wait so long to tell people about this one? Because I remember when we worked together on Skyrim, you sort of at the end of the previous year said, hey, it's coming in November. This year, you guys wanted to wait, obviously, till E3.
Mm-hmm.
So you must be very far along with where you're at with the game.
We are. We're almost done.
Wow.
So we're where we need to be for release. And I think, part of that is, I think people talk about their games, like personally, too early.
Yeah.
I like the moment of finding out about something
Right.
and that swell of excitement.
If you can keep it secret.
That was hard. Well, we obviously had some leaks.
Right.
But, on the scheme of the game and how big it is, we had very little.
Yeah.
And the fact that the mobile game
Yes.
didn't leak at all, and we have, everybody in the company has it on their phone playing it.
Right.
That was really great.
I've tried to make this video about 3 times and always stopped myself because I thought, what is new that I could bring to the table? I'm not a Bethesda hater by any means. I love Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. I even love Fallout 3. And despite not playing New Vegas for 3,000 hours before making a video on it, like some commenters would recommend, I feel as though I can make enough of an impact through the content I put forth. On my first playthrough of Fallout 4, I loved this game. It's a blockbuster game. The first time you play it, you're just trying to keep your jaw off of the floor. The hype for this game was unimaginable, and I think I had the opposite effect that some hype usually gives someone. Instead of being hyped beyond imagination and playing this game disappointed, I was hyped so hard that I played through it without acknowledging any of the criticism the game had earned. After all, hating on this game was a result of being a big nerd, and this was the Fallout that was going to align the fans into one commodity, one alliance. It was going to be the definitive way to play Fallout for both fans new and old. But unlike my New Vegas video, this video isn't about my first playthrough. It's not about me coming back with rose-tinted glasses like the Fallout 3 video. No, this video is a result of my second playthrough of Fallout 4. So leave a like, subscribe, and maybe consider joining my membership program where you'll get videos early and you'll get a shout out in each video. But anyways. Okay, I want to start off with some positivity here. The settlements thing was and is a good idea. Now by the time I got around to this game, I was already tired of the Minecraft stuff, so I didn't really utilize it until around the end of the game when I got bored. And that's the beautiful thing about settlements. If you don't want to do it, you really don't have to. And while I haven't played any, I have heard that there are some mods that make settlement building better. So all in all, I consider settlements a big W. They're kind of pointless, definitely not needed, but much appreciated. I remember wanting to build stuff in Skyrim, so I thought this was a nice natural progression. Now before I get into the meat and potatoes, I'd like to also add that I love the ability to collect stuff in this game. If you want, you can set up every single set of power armor in the game in your garage. And that is just amazing. In fact, that's the huge benefit of power armor in this game. Want to know what the negative of power armor in this game is? The cores. Why did they do it like this? Okay, so for context, right after you leave the vault, you find the Minutemen in a town over, and it's your job to find the core in the generator that powers the whole building. So you can swap it with the core in the power armor, and mow down the rest of the raiders and a Deathclaw that are taking on the town. So basically, Bethesda thought it'd be a good idea to give you power armor right at the beginning of the game, and the only caveat being that you have to keep replenishing cores. Cores that you typically find in buildings, yet when you take the core out of the building, all the lights and everything still works. It's a horrible idea. Power armor is supposed to be a reward, not a birthright. But I understand they wanted to have this big cinematic moment, so I figured I'd rewrite it how they could have done it and not broken lore and ruined power armor. Okay, no cores, but everything else plays out exactly the same. You get the power armor, you mow down the raiders and the Deathclaw, and then boom, a small nuke hits you, causing you and the rest of the town to collapse. You wake up to Preston digging you out of the rubble, and they pull you out of the destroyed power armor. There, done. You have a cinematic moment. You get to experience power armor and death claws and all that right away. Everybody's happy. Instead of completely retconning power armor and thus creating two separate lores, one on the West Coast and one on the East, you just don't do that. But I'm not going to ramble on about the power armor forever. It's not that big of a deal. Just do what I do and stow it at your crib and then leave it for a while until you've collected a bunch of cores. Then get it back for late game stuff. Because between getting a companion right away and power armor and all the weapons you can get early game, it's just too easy. So, I would just spare yourself and, just leave it at your house. Let's talk about the gunplay. In Fallout 3 and New Vegas, you have a sort of limited combat system. No matter if your crosshair was on someone's head to a T, if you don't have the right stats, you're basically gambling whether you're going to actually hit them or not. Which is akin to Dungeons & Dragons. You're basically rolling the dice to hit someone until your character isn't a little worm anymore, and then you can be a god. Whereas in Fallout 4, you have a more Call of Duty-like combat system. I mean, your stats still count for stuff. You can sprint, the aiming is a lot snappier, and overall, it's pushed towards more of a mainstream FPS style, which I for one am not opposed to per se. I play a lot of FPS games, and I can say that Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 have different combat systems, but I don't think either is bad. And a lot of people complained about it at the time, yet everyone downloaded sprint mods in New Vegas. You walk too damn slow in that game. So it's nice to have a sprint button with some stamina. I think it's fine. I don't get why them making combat more fluid would necessarily be a bad thing, and I'm not even saying I prefer it over New Vegas and 3's combat. Actually, I do prefer it over 3's a little bit. I'm just saying the combat system isn't the biggest cardinal sin for this game. And if you think I'm going to talk about the gameplay without mentioning the bugs and issues, then you'd be mistaken. My first Fallout 4 playthrough was on PS4 about a year after it came out, so unfortunately I missed some of the bugs. But I do remember getting the blue error screen from time to time, along with some other weird crashes and that classic Bethesda jank. I don't remember it happening enough to warrant any major frustration. However, after re-downloading the game on PC, the biggest issue I had right off the bat was the game running extremely fast. And what I mean by that is I could click sprint and instantly teleport 100 meters forward. So I had to do some digging online to figure it out, and basically my graphics card was too powerful, so it was running the game at too high of an FPS, I guess? I don't know, because then I turned it down, and now the game just kind of runs a little clunky. I don't know, it's nothing too bad, the frame rate's fine, but it just doesn't really feel good. And before you say, oh, download this mod, that mod, no. I'm trying to explain to you guys there's a reason I didn't download mods for the Fallout New Vegas video. I'm not saying that the biggest sin these games have is that they don't run the best. I mean, obviously that's a big problem. But if I download mods for a game to do a basic raw review of a game, that doesn't make sense to me. If I downloaded mods to do a raw review of a game, that's like buying a base model Honda Civic, putting a Hellcat engine in it, and then still reviewing it as a base model Civic. Would it run better? Yeah, it would. It would be awesome. But seeing as Honda doesn't sell their cars with Hellcat engines in them, I don't see the point of reviewing a Fallout game with a bunch of mods installed unless I'm doing a mod showcase. And no, I haven't played Starfield yet, but it seems to me as though a lot of people complained about it running poorly or not being optimized for their hardware. And given Bethesda's track record, I wouldn't put it past them. Leave a like on this video if you guys want me to review Starfield, by the way. Before I get to the main story of this game, I want to go over the atmosphere of the game a little bit. Someone once said in my comments section that I seem to put atmosphere and story above gameplay, but that's not true. Gameplay is what will make you put 1,000 hours into a game and replay it over and over. Story is the hook, like the first sentence of a 3rd grade paper on photosynthesis. It can build into something great or just spiral into nothingness. But atmosphere is arguably as important as gameplay because the world you choose to escape to after work is something to consider. Fallout 3 and New Vegas have brilliant atmosphere in different ways. And I think Fallout 4's Wasteland is just as good. Bethesda has never been known to not create a marvelous world to play in. I mean, you can hate Skyrim's story, but you can't say it isn't beautiful to walk around in that game, even though it came out in 2011. However, I will say I feel as though Fallout 4 is too bright. During the day, this is a desolate wasteland after all, and I will admit, Fallout 3's gray on gray gets a bit depressing after a while. But I just wish they toned it down a bit. Where this game really shines is at night. Ghouls and raiders roaming around, just a man and his dog trekking on through the shithole that is Boston. Now that is something I can get behind. But alright, spoiler time, let's get to the story. Alright, let's get to the story here. The way they start this game off is possibly top 3 best Fallout intros. You make your character, you have a wife and a son, or husband and son depending on what gender you pick out of the 2 options, and you actually start the game before the nuclear bombs drop, which is something we've never quite seen in Fallout prior. Of course, the bombs drop and you go into the vault. Of course, every vault created by Vault Tech has to be up to some weird stuff, so they cryogenically freeze you, only for your partner to be killed and baby to be taken by a pair of raiders.
Almost. Everything's going to be fine.
Come here. Come here,
wait.
baby.
No, I've got him.
Let the boy go. I'm only going to tell you once.
I'm not giving you Sean.
Then back in cryostasis for an undisclosed amount of time until you finally wake up for good. The whole point of the game is getting your child Sean back. Now I will admit this is a good setup. I went into this game the first time like, wow, how are we gonna fix this situation? And given how Fallout 3 ended, I figured it wouldn't be an overtly happy ending, as is in Fallout. But it's upon a second playthrough that you realize how much the story truly falls apart. Another fetch quest was not what I personally wanted out of Fallout again. And I will admit around halfway through the story I kind of found out where this was all going. Seeing as how you were in cryosleep for years after your son's kidnapping, I knew that by the time you caught up with him, if you caught up with him, he'd be older than you. The rest of the main story will be trekking after your son while investigating the Institute. The Institute is an evil corporation making human-like robots called synths, and their leader is called the Father, a wicked old man who, and last warning, spoiler alert, is your son, who's dying of late-stage cancer. There are 2 main endings to Fallout 4, and they aren't really determined by too much. Unlike Fallout 3 and New Vegas, your choices up to this point aren't really as pivotal to the ending. But in the nuclear family ending, you end up taking over after your son passed from cancer. The other ending entails you and whatever faction detonating a nuclear bomb on the Institute. At least these are the 2 main endings. And I like the story. I can't say that on paper it's not written well. And the twist of your son being an evil villain older than you isn't something I've seen in a video game before. But upon a second playthrough, I find it not to be as great a second time around. It doesn't have much replayability when you start up the game and you know you have to look for your son that you know you'll never find. At least the son you knew. I will admit I think it's better than Fallout 3's story, which some of you guys roasted me in the comments for not liking Fallout 3's story and choosing New Vegas over it in that regard. But all I can say is that while there isn't as much substance in New Vegas' story, I find it infinitely more smooth and replayable, which gets it more points in my book. Overall, I think if you like Fallout 4's story, great. If you don't like it, great. I can see both sides, however my final conclusion upon it is, First off, the NPCs are boring for the most part, which is par for the course for a Bethesda game. I mean, Fallout 3 is the same way. I like Three Dog, but other than that, there's not many NPCs I really care about other than the surface level goal completing factor. The first time I played through, I sided with the Minutemen, and I thought, how could anyone not like the Minutemen? They're some good guys. But that's exactly what everybody at the time's point was. There's not a whole lot of depth to them other than the history of Preston and the rest telling you throughout the game. Their motives aren't quite as interesting compared to maybe the Railroad or even the Brotherhood of Steel, and even those aren't anything too crazy. I also think the crafting system is pretty good. It really makes what would be useless trash useful for making armor, weapons, and upgrading both, as well as making structures for your settlements. The exploration in this game is amazing, and I do want to cover that the scenery and immersive world is possibly the best in the series. It's a shame that the world couldn't be better populated while playing though. And trying to monetize mods when the people who make mods are probably the only reason Bethesda's gone on this long is sick. I'm pretty sure they did away with it though, because when I saw the mod menu in game this time around, it didn't seem like they were paid mods. I could be wrong though. So that's everything I could muster up to talk about Fallout 4. If you want me to cover the DLCs for this game as well as New Vegas and 3, leave a like and a comment and I'll get to it as soon as I can. Consider joining the membership, however. I'd never make these videos just so that maybe I can suck a few dollars out of the great people that choose to watch them. Anyways, have a good night, lads.